fans. It is day one here in Beijing at the Ice Cube. We are at the repurposed National Aquatic Centre in Beijing Summer Olympics in 2008. It hosted all of the swimming events, but we've frozen all that water for this week. And we're about to watch some curling. Our featured game in this session, we will be watching Canada play Switzerland, two real heavyweights of the game. The teams will be welcomed on ice by the traditional pipers.
Ladies and gentlemen,
and we can see both teams already in action earlier on in this round robin. Canada starting off with a win, Switzerland starting off with a loss, so Switzerland will be keen to sharpen up their game. Curling, of course, originating in Scotland, and these pipers trained especially for this Paralympics. So let's say hi to the teams wearing red uniforms and throwing red stones. Fourth thrower for Canada, John Thurston. Lead and skip of the team is Mark Idison.
United States of America.
Second thrower for Canada is Dennis Thiessen. Third and vice skip for Canada, Aina Forrest.
Canada versus Switzerland.
And in the white uniforms, we have lead thrower. That's Patrick de la Cretas. Second thrower is Françoise Jacqueiro. Third and skip is Laurent Kneubuhl. Fourth thrower and vice skip is Hans Burgener. Canada wearing the red uniforms will be throwing red stones. Switzerland wearing the white uniforms will be throwing yellow stones. Both teams played earlier on in the round robin. There we can see in the standings. Canada alphabetically top. It's still very early days. They won their first game. Switzerland lost their first game. Still plenty of games out there in this round robin. We have 11 teams, all of whom will play each other. That was the previous result in the first session. Big, strong win for Canada over last time's gold medalists, China. But this Canadian team, they're no slouches either. All of the other Paralympic gold medals for wheelchair curling have gone to Canada, including several members of this team. Switzerland, they ran into another giant of the sport, Sweden, in their first round robin match. And they lost to Sweden in that one. They will be looking to have a stronger game out here. We always say there are no easy games out there, and it is definitely true. But particularly tough start for Switzerland out there. They will start us off in this first end.
Je te dis quand tu peux.
So Patrick de la Cretas starting us off for Switzerland. Both teams will have had their pre-game practice. Oh, and that's an early miss from the Swiss there. The first end, the ice can be a little bit slower. Sometimes you will hear people call it slower or frostier, a little bit stickier
13.
And that can catch you out, especially if you're wanting to play a guard with the first stone, as it looks like Switzerland was. So an early mistake from Switzerland. Let's see what Canada's tactics are looking like in this first end. That's lead and skip for Canada is Mark Idison. They played very strongly against China, who, as mentioned, were last time's gold medalists. So Canada in good form in this early round, in this round robin, and that's another bright start for Canada. That stone going nicely into the rings there.
Ouais.
Second chance for Patrick de la Plate's. Patrick's teammate Hans Burkner holding on to the wheels as Patrick delivers. That's to make sure that the thrower doesn't slip as they're delivering the stone. And this looks better.
Elle va? No.
Non, elle est dedans.
Oh, that's a pity for Switzerland. That stone was curling nicely,
I think we'll just go open on the other side.
but it's just overrun a little bit. Canada then still lying one at this early stage.
13. Yeah, I think similar.
I think there's one Canada stone closest to the centre.
I like 13.
13, yeah. Good little deep.
You want to be an 8 foot?
Yeah, same, yeah.
Same
Well,
drill
this
for
is a
Canada.
slower
You can
rock.
see John Thurston holding the wheels for Mark Idison to make sure he doesn't slip or get off balance. And you'll often see the third teammate at that end. They will often time the stone. They will record the time it takes. They see that thick red horizontal line, that's the hog line, and the team will time how long the stone takes to get between the two hog lines, and that will give them an indication of how fast the ice is running, so how fast they need to throw a stone for a particular shot to work out. That's another
Qu'est-ce que tu veux?
nice stone there from Mark Idison. Canada have last stone in this first end, so Switzerland don't want to get into a mess early here. First stone for Françoise Chaperon. We'll talk a little bit about the key differences between wheelchair curling and non-wheelchair curling.
Top. Super.
That's a really great start for Françoise there.
Je sais pas si c'est tapé.
9.
And if you maybe watched curling a few weeks ago at the Olympics, the first very obvious difference between wheelchair curling and non-wheelie is that there are no sweepers. Often one of the first questions when one is talking about, oh, I've got my club curling game this evening, or talking about playing curling, and your colleagues will often say, oh, why, yes, I've seen that on TV. Is that the game with all the brushing?
Nice throw.
But in wheelchair curling, no brushing allowed. There's no sweeping here. And you saw how much the men's and ladies teams in the Olympics, you saw how much they needed to sweep. So you can imagine what a difference it could make when one is not allowed to sweep. So that makes it a bit tougher if you're a wheelchair player. And proving us wrong immediately is Dennis Thiessen with a really nice hit and roll in behind that stone. So yeah, Switzerland have no choice here really. They don't have last stone advantage in this first end, and they have to really limit this damage. You can see Françoise putting the brake on her wheel. Setting up to throw, then Patrick grabbing the wheels there. And as Burkner in the background, he will likely be timing this stone.
9-6.
That's fine from Francoise. Switzerland doesn't have last stone in this first end, so it's important that they just keep on keeping the number of Canadian stones down.
Or we can draw here.
Whatever you want.
Two options for Canada with this shot.
Let's draw. Actually,
that's the
never
view
mind,
from
let's hit it. Nose.
the other end of the sheet, and you can see that red on the right of our sheet, the Canadian stone. That's the one closest to the middle just now. That's what we say, that's lying short. You don't have to remove that yellow one.
What's that rock do?
I don't think we had any notes on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Canada doesn't have to remove this yellow stone because it's not any closer to the middle, and it's behind T, so it's not so easy for Switzerland to really use that stone. But Dennis Thiessen just threw a takeout, and Mark Idison may be thinking that it's easier for Dennis Thiessen to throw a second takeout rather than throwing a stone to the house, to the rings, without sweepers. So he certainly does remove. Oh,
10.
he doesn't quite remove the yellow, in fact.
Yeah, I had 9-8.
No, I was down way.
And we saw from Dennis Thiessen's reaction that he didn't really like the look of that shot, even as he let it go.
This.
And indeed, that didn't quite work. So this is a bit of a let-off here for Switzerland. They had a couple of loose shots just early on. So skip and third thrower, Laurent Knoibel. First stone for him in this game. There you can see Francoise in the background there with her stopwatch. He didn't like that when he released it. And indeed, that's just gone inside that red. So a bit of a let-off for Canada. Maybe a couple of nerves out there.
13.
It's still day one of this competition, but there's a very long way to go.
13 and a quarter.
We have tons of curling for you all this week until the medal games this time next week. And this lady on your screen, Ina Forrest, she's really a bit of a legend. She has represented Canada at Paralympics in wheelchair curling at every event since 2010.
Nice roll, Ryan. Good to just fall.
So not so surprising to see quite conservative tactics in this first end. Is that going to overcurl though? It is a little bit. So neither team really wanting stones hanging around, but not quite finding the right curl on this ice yet. Second throw for skip and third thrower Laurent Knoibel. He will make an adjustment after his first stone. He looks a bit happier with that one. This seems to have a better curl. And indeed, out the Canadian stone goes. No reds means no points. So even though that yellow, just on the right, as we see it from Mark Idison, even though that yellow is just hanging on by its fingernails, that would still count for 1 point. If that's still there at the conclusion of the end, even just a little piece of the stone in the rings, that stone is counted. Lovely smooth delivery from Ina Forrest. That gives us a chance to note another important difference about wheelchair curling rather than non-wheelchair curling, and that is all of the players out there, they're using only upper body strength. That's nice from Ina again. So if you're more used to non-wheelchair curling, and typically the power in those shots comes from the leg drive, so you're really pushing out of the hack. And your power really coming from your quadriceps, the big muscles in your thighs. And typically not really from your arms, but wheelchair curlers, all of their power is coming from upper body. And that can be a little bit more difficult to maintain over a long game of curling and a long tournament. First throw in this game for fourth and vice skip Hans Burgener.
Okay.
Hans was the alternate player for Switzerland at the last Paralympic Games in Pyeongchang. Oh, he's got a little bit unlucky with that throw. That yellow stone, that just curled a little bit too much, and that sent it straight back. Here's a good angle. So that yellow stone just over curling and sending that red jamming back onto that yellow. So that red's still hanging around. A little bit unlucky there with the result.
Camera
Switzerland.
looks like yellow is.
Yeah, it was cut off there. It's hard to see.
Yeah, it's close, but we'll hit it.
Mark Idison
9?
just checking which stone is now closer to the middle. First throw in this game for fourth thrower for Canada, John
Guns are
Thurston.
curled here.
John Thurston's first Paralympics, but really strong thrower. Played at a couple of World Championships with this Canadian team already. And
That one.
good start for him. You heard a little I think they would have loved that red shooter. The shooter's the stone you just threw. They would have loved that red shooter to hang around as well and have two Canadian stones in the rings, because now, with just that one Canadian stone counting, Switzerland had the chance to remove that danger. Last stone for Switzerland in this first end. One to come from Canada. No trouble there for Hans Burgener. Sounds like we have a Swiss fan in the house with their Swiss cowbell, making a lovely sound there to appreciate that nice shot.
I think we'll go the out turn.
Okay.
Last stone of the first end then coming for Canada. Canada certainly want to remove that Swiss stone. They don't want to accidentally give a point to Switzerland, but they may want to roll out themselves, just like that.
Yeah, blank.
And you heard Mark Idison agreeing there. Yes, that's a blank end. That means no score.
A little below 8.5.
And we see that confirmed there after the first end between Canada and Switzerland, our featured game in this session of the round robin. The score is 0-0. Blank end in the first end of our featured game here at the Winter Paralympic Games. And we are watching today Canada playing Switzerland, two heavyweights of curling. And if you're a Canadian fan, then that was entirely on purpose, that blank end. That wasn't a mistake from Canada. That was exactly the intention. They needed to remove that Swiss stone, but they also wanted to roll out themselves, and we'll come back to why they wanted to do that. And that means they retain last stone, and Switzerland will again start us off in the second end. does.
12-7.
Ah, nouveau. C'est plus rapide. C'est un peu rapide, mais ça mettait plus de pêche.
And that's a brighter start from him.
Eh, c'est la même qu'avant.
You will hear the Swiss team talking in French. Most of these guys from Geneva area, except for Hans. He's from the German-speaking part, but Swiss people typically very talented language-wise. Oftentimes the Swiss team is from the German-speaking part. That's just where there are more clubs and more curlers, but the Swiss team French-speaking largely. Somewhat similar to Canada. You mostly have English-speaking Canadian teams, but just occasionally you get a French-speaking team, and that stone curled more than Canada thought it would.
Sheet's getting the best of me right now.
It made contact, but it didn't really move that Swiss stone.
Ah, désolé. Excuse-moi. Tu la remets plus court.
Early miss there from Canada. That gives Switzerland a chance to put a bit of pressure on. Switzerland, again, don't have last stone in the second end. Canada does. Looking for a similar kind of shot here in the Swiss lead. Just a little bit shorter than what he had before. And he's played that really nicely. That's the Swiss coach, that's Stefan Pfister. He's been the national coach for quite a few years for the Swiss wheelchair team. Second throw for Mark Idison. The opposite handle this time. You can see that stone curling in a clockwise direction instead of anti-clockwise as he tried before. But the guard has done its job. And that little Swiss stone is still there in the house. There is the Canadian coach. Don't get confused with all the red uniforms. That's Mick Lismore. Both the teams have 38 minutes of thinking time and a 1 minute timeout. And typically more towards the latter stages of a game, more towards the 6th or 7th end, is often when a team would call a timeout. And then the coach has 1 minute to discuss with the team what's the best shot. The thinking time, it works roughly like how it works in chess. So while this stone is traveling, neither clock is ticking. Once this stone comes to rest, then the Canadian clock will start as they are thinking of which stone to play next. Oh, that's just not quite hung on there for Switzerland. That's a pity. That would have put pressure on Canada to have two stones sitting. But now the Canadian clock, thinking clock, will be ticking down. There, you can see that red clock in the top left of our screen.
Smooth 9, Dennis.
That's the thinking time clock. And that clock will stop once second thrower Dennis Thiessen has delivered this stone. The clock went off. So yeah, it's a little bit like chess. While you're thinking, your clock is ticking.
Nice throw, Dennis.
And yeah, Switzerland punished for that little mistake there.
Yeah, so it's
No more Swiss stone to put pressure on Canada.
Okay.
This.
Vas-y, Fafa. À beau 10.
Francoise Jacquereau being asked to play a hit and roll. That Swiss guard is still out front, so if she can just curl to the inside of this red stone, and she has, she's curled a little bit too much. You can see the idea there. That was to remove that red and then just roll just a little distance behind that yellow guard.
C'est bon. Note 6.
Dans le tempo.
Yeah, like that.
9.
Looks like Canada being uber conservative here. Not unusual in the initial ends of a game. And you can see Dennis Thiessen
Good to
using
end.
the stick delivery. Back when wheelchair curling was just beginning, you would see curlers really just leaning over and still holding the stone with your hand and throwing it with your arm as usual. But technology is always improving, and now you will see all the wheelchair players using this delivery stick instead. And you can see just at the end of the stick's about 2 meters or so. You can see just at the end, it has this little flexible handle part that goes over the handle of the stone. First throw in this second end for third and skip for Switzerland, Laurent Knoibühl. He has a mix of French and German names.
15.
And that's found a decent spot. Switzerland throwing aggressively here at that guard. So it's guarding the house, the rings there.
13? Yeah, 13.
Switzerland will be hoping they can go around that stone.
Like 12-9. Yeah.
And get really close to the centre and really block that path for Canada. So that's a nice shot from Switzerland, even though it's not in the rings. Let's watch Ina Forrest's delivery here. Teammate Dennis Thiessen behind her, holding her wheels to make sure she doesn't slip.
Nice throw on.
Nice line, Isla.
And in one clean movement, she pushes the stone forward, and that's the other key difference between wheelchair curling and non-wheelchair.
13-5.
That's coming up a little bit short for Isla, is it? Just short, but you could push that stone in pretty easily, so that's a dangerous stone still for Switzerland. The other, big difference between wheelchair curling and non is, as you could see when we were watching Ina Forrest's nice, smooth delivery there, if you think of non-wheelchair curling, when you use that leg drive to drive out of the hack, and if you've accidentally pushed out a little too hard or a little too softly, you can use your arm to adjust a little bit the stone before you let go. You have 2 or 3 seconds before you have to release the stone, and you can try to adjust it if your leg drive hasn't been quite correct. Now, that's not the case for the wheelchair players. As you can see, they have one push with that stick, and that's it. So once they've released that stone, once that stone's on its way, there's no getting it back, there's no adjusting it. That's not bad from Laurent. They're keeping Canada towards the centre of the ice, and that's what they wanted to do. So even though we have those important differences at this level,
13 1/4.
it does make a difference. So you have no sweeping in wheelchair curling. All the players are using only their upper body strength, and
John Straw to the button here.
they're all using the stick delivery. So just that one push and not able to adjust the stone once it's on its way. There you go, just that nice smooth follow through from Ina Forrest. So at this level, it does make a difference, actually. You can imagine, you could see how much sweeping is involved in non-wheelchair curling. And you can imagine how much more difficult the task is when you don't have sweepers, but Ina Forrest making it look pretty easy out there, cancelling out that Swiss stone. She didn't need to remove it, she just needed to be better than that. So at this level,
How did it feel?
it is simply harder to make perfect shots if you're a wheelchair player. But conversely, curling is a very inclusive sport. If you're a wheelchair user, or even if you wish to use the stick for delivery, there's plenty of people who maybe aren't wheelchair user but just have more limited mobility in their legs or their knees. You can use a stick delivery in that case as well. So if you're a bit sporty and you're a wheelchair user, the good news is that you can just go along to your curling club and join right in. Oh, that's a great try from Hans Burgener, but you can see that stone needed to just have a little bit more beans to outcount that red stone at the back, that red from Canada. That's still the closest to the centre, but that could be a dangerous stone from Hans there.
If we go under there, they're probably just coming here anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Full 8.
Even if you're the only person who's a
13 and a
wheelchair user
quarter?
at the curling
Yeah,
club, don't
like
worry.
your draw to the button.
You can
Okay.
still just go ahead and play with everyone at club
With a
level.
broom more.
There really isn't a big difference. And you'll see a lot of the players, they have that the handle on their non-throwing arm for a bit of balance, a bit of stabilisation. But you don't need to have that, especially if you're just trying curling or if you're just playing for the first few times. And you don't need a particular adjustment or a special wheelchair for sport. This is just all of the folks out there. This is their regular day-to-day chair that they use. So yeah, if you're interested in curling, then
Sorry, Marco.
don't be put off. Just get in touch with your local club. And even if you're the only one who's a wheelchair user, don't worry about it. Just don't feel shy. You can join in with everyone else. And at the club level, it won't make any difference. John Thurston just overthrowing his first stone there, and that gives Hans Burgener a big chance here to thwart Canada's plans. This is quite a big weight from Hans. And he's gone past everything. And I think maybe Switzerland were thinking there was a double takeout possible to remove both of those reds. Nice idea, but the risk was, yeah, if you then don't connect, then Canada has a relatively straightforward shot to make 3 points here. There we are, 1-2 reds. They're closest to the middle. And if Hans Burgener, if he had just played the same shot he'd previously played and just given it a little bit extra push, that might have been a safer idea. Big chance here for Canada and John Thurston to get a big score already in this second end. And this leads back to exactly why they chose to score no points in the first end. And he does have a bit of backing here, which he does use.
I think it's two.
It's 2 for sure.
2 for sure, yeah.
Having a look at it from our angle, it does look like John Thurston was successful there. It looks like 3 points. I think that red just touching the white ring there.
Getting perplexed.
And there, that's confirmed. Well played end from Canada there.
2.
And maybe a bit of a tactical mistake from Switzerland with their last stone, but a big score of 3 for Canada in the second end. If we look at the numbers, both teams finding their feet in this game this early stage. We've only had 2 ends, but already Canada's numbers a little bit higher than Switzerland's, and that reflected in a score of 3-0.
You're going in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 13. So you thought this one was slower too, right?
Yeah. This one's a little better than my other.
It's 13. You safe?
For the first time in the game then, Canada has first stone in this third end. That's another good start for Mark Idison. That red coming to rest just outside the house, that's the rings. And that means that stone is also protected by free guard zone. And the free guard zone is all of the area just in front of the rings up to the hog line. So the hog line is the thick red horizontal line. And we shall see the Swiss stone passing over it just shortly. So all of the space from the hog line there, the big red thick line, all of that space in front of the rings is called the free guard zone, and that means that a stone in that zone cannot be removed from play until 5 stones have been thrown. But you can see that's changed it up a bit now, that first stone from Patrick de la Cretaz. Now both stones are in the rings, they're in the house, and that means they are not protected by free guard zone, and they can be removed from play. From play it is. Fine shot from Mark Idison. Not only does he remove the Swiss stone, he gets that roll in behind cover.
What's that? How line now?
And Switzerland facing a couple of Canadian counters early on in this third end. Really nice stuff from Mark Idison. You might have noticed that in neither of these teams does the skip of the team, so that's the person who is calling the game, who's the tactician, the strategist. They're deciding which shots to play. Neither of those people throw fourth in either the Canadian or the Swiss team. That's nice from Patrick. And here's one of the Canadian stones. Historically, it typically was the person who was the skip, the person holding the brush there, Mark Idison for Canada and Laurent Knoibühl for Switzerland. It typically was that person who threw fourth.
13. Yeah, I like it.
But the two responsibilities are not necessarily the same. The same person who's good at strategy, who's good at figuring out which shot is best to play, that's not necessarily the same person who's good at throwing fourth stones. It's very special throwing fourth stones. There's nobody coming after you, and you need to be someone who hopefully doesn't feel pressure or doesn't crack under pressure. It's quite different throwing fourth rather than throwing first, second or third, where there's always somebody, there's always stones coming after you, even if you don't quite get it right. But throwing fourth, there's no one coming after you. You have to make it pretty much perfectly, and that's why it's tough throwing fourth, and that's not always the same person who's comfortable throwing fourth and last stones as the person skipping, so the person calling the game, and that's the case in both of these teams. Mark Idison throwing lead stones, he throws first, and Laurent Knoibühl for Switzerland, he throws third stones. This is the first end that Switzerland have had last stone advantage. And it's up to Laurent Neuboul to take advantage of that. A great effort from Françoise Jacquarot there. Again, you can see what the idea was, that she was trying to remove that Canadian shot and roll just behind that guard right in the centre.
Good 9.
It's popped out the other side, and Canada will still be able to see it. But right idea from Switzerland. They will really want to grab a couple of points back immediately.
Good to end. 9.5.
But it did enough, that stone from Françoise Jacquarot. You can see that Swiss stone of hers, that's still there. The guard did its job.
On essaie d'enlever puis de wicket.
Bah, même rester, c'est bien.
Ouais.
Faut rester là, autrement on peut aller, tu peux en mettre une là,
Hein?
si tu veux.
C'est toi qui
Je pense que c'est
décides.
mieux
Tu
take
peux pas
out.
mettre une garde?
Non.
Ah.
Tu fais un take-out.
Je pense que c'est mieux, ouais.
Ouais, si j'arrive à wicket, c'est encore bien.
Ouais, ouais, si t'arrives à rentrer un peu. Pas beaucoup, hein.
Important is
Ça fait quoi
that
ça? Plus.
important is that Switzerland have 2 counters. They're allowed 2 shots after this stone. And indeed, there are a couple of ways you could do that. And again, it depends a little bit on personal preference and how you've been playing or what stones you've been playing so far. You could just draw and just make sure your stone is then better than the Canadian stone, or you could do it this way, which is
Oh,
to
ma pierre.
remove the Canadian stone at the same time and leave your stone lying around. You can see that stone not curling very much, the handle's not really rotating, and it's drifting a little bit, but oh gosh. Yeah, you can hear some little sounds of relief there, I think, from the Swiss team.
Pas de rotation. Puis
It's important that you do make the stone curl, otherwise the stone just kind of drifts. It doesn't really have a particular path. That was a really nice shot from Françoise Jacquarot there. Switzerland now lying 2 points, 2 shots. And they're pretty level, the Swiss stones, so it will be hard for Canada to remove them both in a double takeout.
Good throw line.
Yeah.
Everybody liked that one from her release. And indeed, she beaks that nice and solid.
really nice. Great line. Lots of rotation.
But you can see Switzerland's plan here. They just do the same, and they keep their yellow stone away from that other yellow on the right of our screen. You can see how this plan works out. Switzerland will be hoping to just try and keep this tactic going, and they will be hoping they can end up having an opportunity to score 2 in this end. So the same idea for Laurent Neuboul. Important that this yellow hangs around. It sounds like they're... Oh, it sounded like they were a bit nervous, but no need. He's got that right on the beak as well. And you can see nice stone placement here. Those 2 yellow stones pretty far apart. Pretty difficult to make a double takeout. All Canada can do is just keep removing the easier stone and try or hope that Switzerland eventually makes a half shot and doesn't hit and stick. So if Switzerland would ever roll out, then Canada could remove the other Swiss stone. But at the moment, Canada, not much they can do about this situation, apart from try and set a trap and hope Switzerland spring that trap.
Nice throw.
Yeah, it's holding.
That's nice from Ina Forrest again. again, important that this yellow hangs around. It needs to remove the Canadian shot, but he also wants this yellow to stick around, but he's over-curled that one. And that's the mistake that Canada needed. And now Canada goes straight to the Swiss stone.
Didn't move much, right?
And
He's
they will have a
thrown
chance to
down
now
here,
remove
right?
that Swiss counter.
Sorry?
You've thrown this hit.
Yeah, first hand.
You threw this in one?
Just caught it. Just caught enough of it, right?
That's a pity
You
for
like that?
Switzerland.
Yeah, 9?
Yeah.
You can see up until that shot, which really completely changes the end, you can see that Switzerland's plan to grab 2 shots back was going pretty well. But it is a little bit high risk, the strategy as well, when you constantly have to hit and stick. You can't afford to make a mistake, or this is what will happen.
I like it.
Oh, yeah.
No mistake from John Thurston. And as Switzerland do want to grab 2 shots back, both of these stones from Hans Burgener are going to have to count.
Dégénère. Eh oui.
A bit of pressure on Hans Burgener here. This is the first time that Switzerland have had last stone. And they were looking pretty good for a lot of this end, but you can see how quickly the situation can really change. Just one missed shot, and suddenly all of that work, you can't take advantage of it anymore.
Allez.
Little word of encouragement from teammate Patrick de la Crechaz.
90 bonnes.
Ah, c'est bien.
Là, pour le reste, hein.
That's nice from Hans.
Je pensais que ça restait mieux que ça.
That's not a bad shot at all. You can
No.
see how far out on the
Okay.
wings, we would say, on the sides of the
What do you
sheet.
think it's going to do here?
Canada hasn't played this far out before, and the further away a stone is
thinking
from that
fairly
centre
straight
line,
with a
Yeah, I
nine.
think it's fairly straight. Maybe just a little finish at the end.
Just a, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
the further the stone is from the
Think a
centre
9?
line, typically the harder it can be to remove.
Are you thinking 9?
Yeah, good 9.
Okay.
And that's why that's a nice stone from Hans. He's the only way that Switzerland can get 2 points is if John Thurston has a miss with this stone, and that's a good spot for the Swiss stone to try to get a mistake from Canada here. But
Yeah, nice throw.
no mistake from John Thurston. I don't think we'll see many mistakes from Canada today.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've won every gold medal in wheelchair curling since its introduction to Paralympic Games, except for last time where they won
Allez,
bronze.
on est un.
So no dummies, this Canadian team.
Strong.
Last stone of the third end for Switzerland.
Piège.
That's better from Hans. Switzerland will score 1 point. The other option would have been another blank end where no score.
Bon, ça fait...
But maybe that steadies the ship a bit. We can see after 3 ends, the score is Canada 3, Switzerland
On remonte,
1.
on remonte.
C'est parti. Hein.
You got it.
Regarde, faites regarder.
Yeah, not very positive, but like it ran like we thought it would. Like it was
summary of the game there. We can see by the numbers, and we also see it reflected in the score that Canada out-shooting Switzerland a little bit just now. Both teams having a couple of loose shots, but Canada definitely being a bit more consistent at the moment. They lead 3 shots to 1 after 3 ends. Was that going to get across? I'm not sure if it does. That thick red line, the horizontal line, that's the hog line, and all of the stone must be across all of the line for the stone to be in play. Laurent having a bit of a look, but deciding no. All of the stone not over all of the line. So that stone taken out of play.
What's that? What weight?
13.
13?
1275?
Yeah, 1275, I think, Mark.
1274.
This one? You thought this rock maybe a little sore?
Yeah. Oh, they're both.
Canada with last stone in this 4th end, and we have an 8-end game in wheelchair curling. Last end then before half-time. And here at Paralympics, there is a short break at half-time. If you're just playing at the club, there typically isn't. This is good stuff again from Mark Idison. That battle lead is really having a big difference just now. Mark Idison really not missing much. And a couple of key misses really for Patrick Delacretas. So he'll be looking to just sharpen up his numbers a little bit. Switzerland without last stone in this 4th end. They're quite happy to play towards the centre, and that's a much better shot there from Patrick Delacretas. That stone's in that area out front. It's in that free guard zone. Canada cannot remove that yellow from play yet.
You going around it then?
So, yeah, the last one was
Like
13.
you going around?
Yeah, just a little, just down to it.
Like there?
Yeah.
We saw Canada with their first stone. They opted to play away from the centre line.
This rock.
Yeah.
And that maybe seems a little bit strange. So what were they doing? Well, in any given end, you have one last stone. Therefore, at this level, where we won't see too many mistakes, you can imagine that you put a stone in play, and the other team hits it out, and then you hit theirs out,
Nice weight, Mark.
etc., etc. And with your one last stone, you have one chance to make one
Nice
point.
shot.
Canada again playing away from the centre line there, and what they're doing is they're trying to build up an end. If you
I gotta throw that. I'm gonna throw that second.
If you would just exchange rock for rock, stone for stone, you will end up with 1 point at the conclusion of the end.
Yeah.
Then last stone would go to the other team. And if you do that for 8 ends, you will end up with a score of 4 each. Therefore, if you want to win the game, you have to mix it up a bit. And that's exactly what Canada's doing. The only way to score 2 points or more when you have last stone, remember, scoring 1 point with your one last stone, that's a little bit like the default. And to score 2 or more points with your last stone, you need to set up some traps. You need to set up some difficult shots for your opposition, and you will need a miss from your opposition. You can only ever score 2 points or more if your opposition misses a stone. If they play their 8 stones, you're only ever picking up 1 point anyway. And this is what Canada are trying to do. They're trying to put the stones in more difficult positions and trying to get a mistake from Switzerland, whereby they can then score, hopefully, 2 or more points. And that's exactly why Canada decided to score 0 points in the first end. They had a blank end in that first end. It would have been easy for Canada to
Do you
just
ever like the peel?
throw a stone and land the stone in the house, in the rings. That would be easy for Canada. But then
simple, maybe.
they would give last shot up to Switzerland, and they decided to keep last stone instead.
Okay. You like that? Yeah. Okay.
So Canada just threw their stone away, kept last stone, and then scored a big 3 when they kept last stone in that second end. They got a couple of mistakes on Switzerland, which they didn't get so much in the first end, and they were able to score that big 3. And that's why you'll sometimes see teams doing that. You'll sometimes see teams deliberately scoring 0 so that they can hang on to last stone and try again in the next end to get some mistakes from the opposition and start building up some points. So free guard zone is finished. That dangerous Swiss stone out front. Canada don't like it. They want to remove, but as you can see, Dennis Thiessen does remove the Swiss stone, but he leaves his own stone flying around a little bit as well, and that's still a stone that Switzerland can use. Switzerland, they're happy to keep play towards the centre of the ice, the centre of the sheet. If you don't have last stone, then your objective for the end is either to prevent your opposition scoring, or sometimes you have to try to score yourself. That's stealing points. If you can score points, even though you don't have last stone, that's stealing. So for the moment, we're only in the 4th end. We're just about half time. And more important really for Switzerland at this stage is just to really stop Canada putting too much pressure on them. And the best way to do that is if Switzerland could get a stone nice and close to the centre of the rings,
13.
behind that guard, that would really give Canada some trouble.
Mark was 13-3.
Yeah.
A missed chance there, that stone just going through, and that means that Canada may beat Switzerland to the centre now.
Fall to in. We got 12.
That stone's just running on as well. So Switzerland may have another chance at this. Indeed, that stone from Dennis Thiessen. Both second throwers, actually, Dennis Thiessen and Françoise Jacquot, they're in this game and in general potentially more used to throwing that bigger weight, more like a takeout to remove a stone. So it can be difficult to adjust, bring that weight all the way back down to a draw. A draw will land in the rings in the house. And that is exactly what Switzerland are trying. They want to use that red guard at the top of our screen. They would love to hide a stone right in behind that. Make it hard for Canada to score. Laurent Knoibul having a bit of a struggle with this game so far. He'll be looking to just get a few more shots on target. The line is really nice, but is it going to stop? I don't think it is. It does stay in the house. It doesn't quite outcount that red stone. You can see the red still closest to the middle, but that line, the direction of that stone, that took a nice path. Yeah, Lauren, not too happy with that one.
13.
Do you like a little more ice just so we're in the 8-foot? Yeah.
Canada playing with fire slightly here. It's all very well putting your stones away from the centre, but if Switzerland can get that shot in behind cover towards the centre of the ice, that gives Canada a bit of a headache. But what they're doing is setting up potential points 2 and 3. As It's a cracker again from Ina Forrest. Look at that. She could not have gone up there and placed it any better. Those stones absolutely level. Even Niklas Edin would not be able to make a double takeout on those two stones.
Yeah.
And what Canada are doing, they're trying to keep Switzerland away from the centre of the rings. They don't want that Switzerland tries to throw a stone in behind that guard. But there's definitely opportunity here for a hit and roll. So first things first, we want to hit the Canadian stone out. And we do. And ideally what they wanted was to roll to the right of our screen and snuggle in right behind that guard at the top of our screen. But first things first, that's removed that Canadian stone, and you can see that yellow is in fact now lying shot. It's closest to the centre. Ina Forrest goes through that same routine every time she throws a stone. And look, it's Ina Forrest who's found that roll. Look at that. Two absolute corkers from Ina Forrest. Definitely worthy of some applause from our local crowd. Foreign fans not able to visit these Winter Paralympic Games. But we do have some local fans in. The Chinese team not playing in this session, but we got to watch them in the session earlier on today. So those two real peachy shots from Ina Forrest. That's put big pressure now on Switzerland. Switzerland don't have last stone in this fourth end. Hansburgener, he's had some difficult shots to look at already today. This is curling nicely. This is curling nicely. Ooh, that just ran out of gas a little bit. What a pity. What a nice line that stone had. You could see it was heading straight for that red. And that again demonstrates just the difference in the level of difficulty of shots when you don't have someone to sweep for you.
Same throw, T-line. Okay.
The level of difficulty of the shots.
12-9 on
every shot
yeah,
for
I like 13.
These curlers out here, all of their shots are simply more difficult.
12-9, 13.
Because they don't have anyone to sweep and they're only using their upper body strength instead of the leg drive. And they get one go at pushing the delivery stick and they cannot adjust. But John Thurston making it look quite easy out there. He's throwing really strongly again out there.
Nice throw.
John Thurston, the only one of this Canadian team that's at his first Paralympic Winter Games. But you'd hardly know it. He seems to have settled into the Paralympic spirit pretty quickly.
All right, Marco. 13.75. Okay.
It wasn't quite where they wanted it. I think, again, they wanted that one level with the red. It's just the furthest right of the red there. But not easy for Switzerland to try again at this shot. Not a lot of space now to sneak in and up to that red. So another tricky shot today for Hansburgener.
45.
Super
A bit
vitesse.
speedier than his first one. And that's really nice from Hans. Well done. Some nice cowbells appreciative there. That's good work from Hans. You won't see him smile or show too much emotion while he's on the ice, Hans, but I can assure you he's perfectly nice off the ice.
From center. Yeah, you can open it up. Yeah. I like that.
Definitely a chance for Canada to get at this stone.
8.5.
You can see that stone just to the right of Mark Ideson's brush as we see it, just thrown by Switzerland. It just bumped back towards the centre, so I think it is still open. Big shot for John Thurston. Big opportunity here. He doesn't like it, and it has got the guard. So, gee golly gosh, what a save from Hans Burgener. That little stone right at the last there, that is going to steal a point. So Switzerland scored even though they didn't have last shot. Did enough to make it difficult for Canada, got that little mistake. I think that's the first missed shot we've seen from John Thurston, and what a result that is. Switzerland stealing a point at the halfway time, making it 3-2. Canada leads Switzerland. There's our local fans enjoying some Paralympic Winter Games curling. China qualified for this competition as hosts, but they actually had more points than everyone else as well. They won the gold medal last time. So it's half-time here in our featured game between Canada and Switzerland, and we can see that the Canadians really out-throwing the Swiss team at the moment, although not quite as strong as they maybe were in their first game. Their numbers down a little bit from that first game, but let's see what their coach has to offer at half-time.
So let's be clear on where we're making the adjustment. Like if we're throwing a bit more weight, if we're taking a bit more broom, where that's happening, so we're all aware.
Yeah. So you want to throw 8.5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great
I
second.
think we're in good shape.
Oh yeah.
Up 1 with 25.
And here's the numbers for Switzerland. Certainly better than their first game, but struggling a little bit to keep up with Canada. But what a save from Hans Burgener. Let's see what their coach has to say in half-time.
Vor allem zweimal konstant, zwei gute Steine. Hä? Nicht zufrieden sein, wenn ihr einen guten Stein habt. Und investiert noch ein bisschen Konzentration in den zweiten Stein. Hä? So, jetzt erst recht. Und jetzt nochmals, wird nochmal besser, auch wenn der erste gut war.
There's the summary of the game. You can see Canada just outthrowing Switzerland at the moment. They lead 3 points to 2. But a really big swing
Get another end.
in that fourth end. Huge shot from Hans Burgener to save that fourth end. Put a really important point on the board for Switzerland. If Canada had made that shot, that could have been another 3. And you can imagine what a difference between a score of 6 points to 1 versus a score of 3 points to 2. So let's keep that energy going, Switzerland.
Traillé.
Ouais, c'est pris, hein. Voilà.
In wheelchair curling, we have 8 ends. So at the half-time, Canada lead Switzerland 3 shots to 2.
N'importe où une garde. Quoi?
Tu fais une belle garde, pas une n'importe où. Une schöne garde.
Okay.
After that delightful steal of 1 point, when Switzerland didn't have last stone in the fourth end. Switzerland again, starting off with first stone in this fifth end. And Patrick de la Cretaze, he had a couple of loose shots in the first half of this game, but that's basically perfect.
Garde.
14-1.
You can see Anna Forrest having a look at that. She's wondering if it's in the house, in the rings.
Not in?
It isn't. Nope, there we Anna Forrest just confirming for us.
13?
And because that stone's not in the house, that means it's protected by free guard zone. That means that Canada cannot remove that stone. So really super shot there from Patrick de la Cretaze.
12.
Mark Idison doing what we've seen him do all game, though. Gosh, he's really got that weight in his pocket.
13,5.
In English, we tend to talk about the weight of the stone. You would talk about how heavy the stone is traveling or how light. That means how far it will travel or not. Whereas in German, at least, you talk about the length of the stone, which maybe makes a bit more sense, actually. Either the stone will travel quite a long way or a shorter way. But you'll hear curlers saying the stone's a bit heavy or the stone's a bit light, and that's what they mean. They mean it will travel a bit too far or not quite far enough. This looks like another really nice stone from the Swiss lead. Very nice pair of stones from him. Both of those stones protected by free guard zone. They can be moved around, but not moved out of play.
Fine. I like the end.
Really nice setup from Switzerland. Well done.
13?
Yeah,
13,
so.
yeah.
Well, with this rock, 12.
Oh, 1275?
Yeah, 1225.
So I had 1354 on this last one. Now I give up.
Okay.
This is an interesting switch up of tactics. We've seen Canada consistently play away from the centre line when they've got last stone. They did that with Mark Idison's first stone. But seeing those two really nicely placed first shots from Switzerland, maybe thinking, if we don't get to the centre, then Switzerland are nicely set up to get there first. Maybe we should try that. But that Canadian stone not curling enough for Mark Idison.
But this?
This way.
And Françoise Jacquel, her takeouts are going nicely today. Opportunity here for Switzerland to remove the Canadian counter and maybe bring those centre guards into play. Now she's done it. That's a girl. Happy noises from Françoise Jacquel, quite right too. Really nice stuff from her. She gets both of those reds moving.
I think so.
Yeah.
And she gets a really nice roll there as well. And this is the strongest setup we've seen from Switzerland. That's really 3 out of 3 stones, and what a difference that's making. Dennis Thiessen, not quite as accurate as he was in the earlier game. But really early days with the statistics, and one can overthink statistics for sure. They're mostly helpful for telling you where you maybe have a gap in your game, where it could be good to practice, or where your opposition maybe has a gap. But one can definitely overthink it. But you can see how good that setup is from Switzerland. They're forcing Canada to hit the guards instead of going for the shot. Canada thinking, yeah, it's a bit too difficult to go straight for the shot. That's the stone just touching the red circle, the 4-foot. Curling, of course, is hundreds of years old. It was invented long before the metric system. And you will still hear curlers talking about the 4, the 8 and the 12, and they're talking about the 12-foot circle is the outer edge of the blue one, the 8-foot circle is the outer edge of the white one, and the all-important 4-foot, where a lot of shots are scored, that is the outer edge of the red circle. This is good stuff from Switzerland. If they can keep this going, keep putting that pressure on Canada, keep junking up the centre of the ice. That's running on a little bit from Françoise. Dug in just towards the back. That could be important later. You can see it's a very nice line that stone has. Curls around that guard by nothing at all, by just a few molecules. And it's certainly nice and safe, that stone just thrown. And that could become important later. For now, though, Canada still just wanting to remove the guards out front. Canada do have last stone. And they will not want all these Swiss counters cluttering up the centre line.
Oh, good to in on that one.
And you heard a bit of a sigh of exasperation there from Canada, and that's why, look at that red just at the top of our picture there. Dennis Thiessen has, unfortunately, simply replaced one guard with another. Doesn't move the stones in the house, and unfortunately has left a guard out front. So huge opportunity here for Switzerland. Oopsie. Looks like someone got tangled up in their stopwatch, but everybody's fine now. To Laurent Knoibul. A little bit of a loose start, but he's certainly starting to pick up now. Switzerland should know this path. They've played this clockwise handle, clockwise turn. They've played this several times now in this end, and they should know this path quite well. And that stone is going to hang on. It's just followed exactly that same direction. Everything piling in behind that red guard. It has drifted on a little bit further than Switzerland would have liked. It's typically nicer or better for you if you have your shots in front of the tee line. That's the horizontal line through the circles, just behind Mark Idison when we see him. Of course, what a game Ina Forrest is having. As she did earlier on, she was really strong for Canada. Now the shot's looking a little bit different. Now it's a red that she's pushing. That red could be pushed back just like that onto that Swiss stone, and that is a very nice shot from Ina Forrest. You can see she's removed that Swiss stone that was right in the forefoot. Here we go. Red onto yellow, boom. Straight out. She was a wee bit unlucky not to catch the yellows at the back there as well. And that's really got Canada out of a bit of a scrape there. You can see now the Swiss time clock, the yellow one on the bottom of the scoreboard, that's counting down while the team are preparing. And then once the stone's released, their thinking time will stop. Oh no, indeed. That's a very unfortunate result for Switzerland. He did make contact, but he just pushed that red straight back into those yellows. And that neatly demonstrates why stones behind the tee line can be a little bit dangerous.
We got to be half buried. Okay. Or we peel.
No, I think top 8.
I don't mind
We're
peeling.
hit and roll.
Hey?
We're hit and roll.
Go right here.
Okay, I like it.
1325?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this better as well. The other option Canada were discussing were to remove that guard, which might sound like a funny sort of idea. If you're Canada and you have last stone and you have a guard out front, why not use it? That would be the uber conservative move, would be to remove the guard. They're still very concerned that Switzerland might be able to swing a stone in behind that guard as well. That would be the reason to remove it. But that would be really frightfully defensive. And for us viewers, we typically like to see stones in play, but of course this has got a bit of running on it, this stone. That's not going to slow down in time. That could be why Mark Idison was considering maybe a hit and or a hit and roll.
They've thrown a lot of stones in that path.
Faster that way. Do you think faster that way?
It can be harder for the wheelchair curlers to play that perfect draw for the reasons we've discussed. So they don't have anyone sweeping. They're only using the upper body strength and not the leg drive like non-wheelie. And they only get one push with that stick. They can't adjust the stone at all, unlike the non-wheelchair players. If we push out a bit too fast or a bit too slow, we've got a couple of seconds before we release the stone that we can give it a bit of extra beans. Not so with the wheelchair curlers. Once that stone's on its way, that's it. No chance to do anything about it. But Hans Burgener certainly does have a good chance here to capitalise on that mistake from Canada. I think that's about the first mistake we've seen from Ina Forrest. And this looks better for weight. I don't think this is travelling as much as Ina's stone.
I'd say 9.
Hello?
Just pulling up a little bit shorter. We can see that line is working really nicely for both teams, actually. But that's not bad from Hans. That's a stone we could use later. that yellow stone just played by Hans Burgener, that's a stone that Switzerland could push with his next stone and push that further into the rings.
What do you think for time?
I had 13.8 on it. I had 13.8 on.
13 and a half?
13 and a
Yeah,
half.
that's what I was thinking.
13.3, 13.5.
Again, don't get too bogged down in the statistics. That would seem to indicate that John Thurston's having a bit of a struggle with his game, and it's really just one or two key shots that he missed. And sometimes games can come down to that, particularly at this level. There aren't too many mistakes from the players. But this looks pretty nice from him. That is exactly what Switzerland were hoping to do, but Canada have beaten them to it. And now we have another tricky shot here for Hans Burgener.
Non, il faut qu'il fasse 12,5 pour l'enlever.
Ouais, puis qu'il reste.
Oui.
It looks like Switzerland are doing the wise thing here. The more ice you take and the slower the stone is going, the more it's going to curl. And it looks like rather than risking a takeout, and sometimes the takeout, that because it's a bit stronger, it's a heavier stone you're throwing, or rather it's going faster. If that stone's not accurate, it doesn't curl hardly at all. Whereas this slower weight, you give the stone a chance to curl. Oh, but it's not going to quite curl enough. What a pity.
Ah, 11-7, 11 Tiben.
And you can see the idea behind that Switzerland stone there. They were just playing that slightly gentler weight, not a huge weight, not a big takeout, just that slightly gentler weight to curl onto that Canadian stone and just punch it back a little bit. That's a pity for Hans. He was pretty close to doing so. Some nice play though in this end. Maybe about to pay off for Canada. This looks like another peachy shot from John Thurston, and that is a score of 3 there to Canada. And Canada just starting to put a bit of space now between them and Switzerland, getting a bit of a gap there in the score. That score confirmed after scoring 3 points there. Then after 5 ends, Canada leads Switzerland 6 shots to 2. There's our game summary. The numbers pretty similar, but Canada just starting to put a bit of distance between them and Switzerland. Their accuracy is just a little bit higher. And they've scored, there we can see the confirmation, they have twice scored a big score of 3 points, meaning the total score after 5 ends is 6 shots to 2.
Yeah, this path was
Canada
pretty
leads
good. Like, we
Switzerland.
haven't played it in a bit, but this is my draw to the button path.
Okay, with this rock. Last sign. Just no,
this less ice.
Just less ice.
I like 13.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sixth end in this 8-end game. We are at the Paralympic Winter Games. We are watching Canada versus Switzerland here in the ice cube. We have frozen all the water in the National Aquatic Centre. And for the next week, we're going to be watching the wheelchair curling at the Paralympic Games, the Paralympic Winter Games here in Beijing.
Ouais, mais dans le corner, ouais. Je veux pas cacher sa pierre.
Il faut pas cacher sa pierre, hein?
Wheelchair curling are 8-end games. Not 8-10, as we have in the men's and the ladies. 8 ends here, and that means that Switzerland, they're going to have to start scoring a few points to grab back this gap here. There's only 3 ends to come, including this one. Switzerland 4 points behind. They will need to make good use of last stone advantage in this end.
C'est un 12-6, alors c'est 2-2.
Goes 8.
Ouais.
Oh, and that looks like a nice shot if you're Switzerland. And oftentimes it would be.
Yeah, this should.
But that is actually a little bit of a mistake from Patrick de la Cretaz. You can see that Ina Forrest is putting her brush down just on the edge of that yellow stone. And because that yellow stone is in the house, it's in the rings, it's not protected by free guard zone. That's why they wanted that stone outside the rings, actually. Because that stone has just slipped into the rings, that means that Canada can go ahead and remove it. A little bit of luck for Switzerland, though. Canada making contact, but not quite enough. So.
Oh mon Dieu.
A courageous call here from Switzerland.
Ça m'a l'air bien, mais j'ai trop l'impression que les livres.
This is what one will sometimes hear referred to as a junior 2. The idea there was to remove that red, keep the yellow in the house, keep that yellow in play, and then you would be lying 2 yellows and try to just keep doing that for the next 15 stones. But both teams finding nice, a little bit straighter in this end. And Dennis Thiessen will now have a chance to remove that Swiss stone after all. Dennis Thiessen left-handed. Interestingly, we have 4 out of the 8 players out there are left-handed. Nice run from Dennis Thiessen there.
Sorry, man.
Especially in wheelchair curling, it doesn't make any difference if you're right or left-handed, because you're anyway starting the stone in the same place.
J'ai sur laquelle? La centrale, là.
In non-wheelchair curling, when you're using that leg drive from the hack, there's one hack either side of the centre line for right and left-handed throwers. And just occasionally, it can make a very slight difference, but not really. But certainly in wheelchair curling, it makes really no difference whether you're left or right-handed. Okay, we need some good stuff here from Françoise Jacquerot. She's been more used to hitting in this game, but we're going to need some nice draw weight from her. A draw stone will sit in the house. That's what she's aiming for. That's not a bad result. That stone is hanging around, that yellow. And it's tucked in behind that red on the left of our screen. So Françoise isn't too happy with it, but that stone could become important. You can see it's not so straightforward to remove that yellow stone. So Switzerland can do something about those 2 reds in front. Maybe they can bring that yellow back into play.
13 1/4,
yeah? Yeah, 13 1/4. Yeah. Like it.
And it's Dennis Thiessen now being asked to drop the weight and play a much more gentle stone.
It was nice and full.
some of the wheelchair athletes, you can see they have a little kind of bar or handle on their non-throwing arm. They use that for balance as they throw, to keep their shoulders in line and everything in line. But you don't have to have that if you're a wheelchair user and you want to try curling. Don't worry, you don't need any special equipment. Your own day-to-day chair is absolutely fine. We just typically clean the wheels before we go on the ice, so there aren't any little specks of dust, just like you wear non-outside shoes in the curling rink as well. But yeah, that's just their regular chair. There's nothing to stop you if you wanted to have a wheelchair for sports. But I don't think in curling it's a particular advantage, but you will see some folks do have that little handle to balance on their non-throwing arm. But if you're a wheelchair user and want to try curling, you don't need any specialist equipment. The curling club will have the stick for delivery, and you can absolutely go along and try.
Yeah.
So that's more like it from Francoise. That yellow stone is open for Canada, but you can see it's starting to build some stones around that could be dangerous. This is exactly what Switzerland need to do. Switzerland needs stones in play. If they're going to get at least 2 points here in this sixth end, they need a mistake from Canada. If your opposition doesn't make a mistake, you can only ever score one.
Great, it's going to come up nice.
But Anna Forrest, not for making mistakes out there at the moment. That's quite a significant difference actually at third spot there. Anna Forrest having a really strong game, and Laurent Knoibühl not quite finding his range during this game so far. Now would be an excellent time to drop in a couple of peachy stones.
12 meters.
We've spoken a bit already about why the percentages in wheelchair curling are typically a little bit lower than at this same level for the men's and ladies. And it's very simple. It's because the degree of difficulty, if you're a wheelchair curler, is actually just higher than if you're in the men's and the ladies event. It's much more difficult to get perfect stones without sweeping, using your upper body strength, etc. That's nice from Laurent. That's better. He doesn't need to move that red all the way out. You can see he just punched that red back just a little bit behind the tee line, that horizontal red line in the centre of the rings. That's more like it from Laurent. You can see the danger here for Canada. There are spaces, there's space to remove that yellow, but there's also a couple of pesky little reds now behind the tee line, the horizontal one. And if Anna Forrest is not super accurate with this stone, Switzerland will hope that one of those reds might catch their yellow stone on the way past. That's why sometimes you actually don't want to remove the opposition stone, you just want to move things around a little bit.
It's okay.
And look, it's done its job.
Good shot, Anne.
That tempted Canada into a mistake. And Switzerland need to use that mistake now. Their line shot, their line closest.
Yeah. No, that's exactly.
That yellow just thrown by Laurent Knoibühl. And now it's important that Switzerland get a second counter in. See too many more takeout stones from Switzerland. It favours Switzerland to keep stones in play now. They're more likely to get a mistake from Canada the more stones are in play, and this looks really nice again from Laurent Knoibühl, coming into his game nicely. Those stones are quite close together. Possible for Canada to remove both of them at once. But as we said, if Switzerland are ever to score 2 points or more in this end, they need a mistake from Canada anyway. You only ever have one last stone in an end.
Oh, wait.
And if you're going to score more than 1 point with your one last stone, you need a mistake from your opposition. For sure, Canada then taking a run at these 2 yellows. Even if they just remove one, that will be absolutely acceptable. First throw in the 6th end for John Thurston in his first Paralympic Winter Games. And he's pretty experienced at World Championships now, and I'm sure he's relishing his first Paralympic experience. And that's exactly what Switzerland were hoping for. You can see how dangerous now it was to keep those Canadian stones lying around. That's why sometimes you don't want to remove an opposition stone. You don't mind if the opposition stone's lying around, because then this can happen. So for all, Canada are definitely out-shooting Switzerland. Switzerland, they're just hanging on in there. They are definitely giving themselves chances to stay in this game. That kind of missed angle, again, much more likely in the wheelchair game because you don't have sweeping. We've seen the sweeping in the men's and ladies event. We've seen that the sweeping really makes a difference to the direction of the stone. And so much more difficult when you don't have folks sweeping your stone. So deep breath, Hans Burgener. You can see he just put that little twist on just before he released the stone with the stick delivery, and that's what causes the stone to curl in that clockwise direction. We call that putting on the handle. So you're twisting the handle, curling the handle either in a clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. This looks nice from Hans. Oh boy, this is good stuff from Switzerland. Look at this. Rather against the run of play, Switzerland find themselves in a delicious position here in the 6th end. Their Hans doggedly hanging on to John Thurston's numbers there.
Nose. Nose. Yeah. 8.5. Okay.
John Thurston having a superb start to the game, but Switzerland just starting to get a couple of half stones, a couple of misses from him now. You can see how important that stone right before half-time, and Hans Burgener just played a lovely stone right to the middle and got a miss out of Canada. You can see how important that was to keep this game going. And let's see what we have here. Well, wowzers. Anything you can do. What a shot from John Thurston. Yeah, our local crowd appreciating that one. He moves all 3 yellows. The jam was somewhat inevitable, but he gets all 3 moving, 1, 2, 3, and really neutralizes a lot of that danger.
Is about that. Is about that.
Still possible for Switzerland to score 2 points, but that's the maximum now, and that's thanks to a really nice throw from John Thurston. A bit of a smile of relief, I think, for the Canadian team. There were heaps of Swiss stones piling up there. We won't get many chances to score 2 points against Canada. Hans Burgener really needs to take this chance. The Swiss team, they've got plenty of time on their clock. Canadian team, a little bit tight for time, but they don't need to rush. They just don't want to delay too much. And he's got it beautifully. Well done, Hans. Really nice shot. And Switzerland, they are hanging on. That looks like 2 yellow from our angle.
C'est net ou bien?
J'ai vraiment la cloche 6.
And it is.
C'est net ou bien il n'y a rien besoin de mesurer?
That seems to have cheered everybody up. Quite right.
Ah ouais, parce que depuis en haut, on dirait...
Confirmation there after 6 ends.
Ouais, c'est bien.
Important score of 2 for Switzerland, and that makes the overall score Canada 6, Switzerland 4. Here's the overall game summary. Switzerland doggedly hanging on there. Canada still outshooting them by a little bit, but Switzerland not going away. They're really still fighting out there, and an important score of 2 for them in that 6th end. There we are. That overall score brings us to Canada 6, Switzerland 4.
Patrick. Oui.
Ah, c'est beau. C'est bon, il va aller.
Ouais, parce qu'il dit qu'on peut gagner 2.
C'est bon.
7th end in this 8-end game in Beijing. We're at the Paralympic Winter Games. We're at the National Aquatic Centre, which for the next week has been transformed into the Ice Cube.
Gas. 15.
And this is a nice start for Switzerland. Remember in the 6th end, that first shot from Patrick de la Cretaise, that just slipped into the rings and it wasn't protected by free guard zone. But his first stone here in the 7th end, that's exactly where they wanted it. It's on the centre line. It's right in front of the house, just in front of the rings. Protected by free guard zone. Canada not allowed to remove that stone out of play. Canada with last stone in the 7th end. Mark Idison, awfully talented at throwing a draw weight to the wings. That's the size of the sheet.
Ça fait 2 gardes.
If you're a Canada fan, you might wonder, why is Canada doing that? Canada have last stone. Don't they want to score points? And the answer is yes, they do. But what they don't want to do is get sucked into Switzerland's tactics here. Switzerland, they're going to try to keep stones towards the centre of the ice, because that's their best way of scoring and or frustrating Canada. Although that won't frustrate anything, that's just running on a bit. The best way for Canada to pick up big points here is if they play a few stones away from the centre. Then they will turn their attention to the centre of the ice. And hopefully with the last stone, they would pick up a point in the centre of the ice as well as those stones that they're currently throwing to the wings. That's why they're doing that. It's not a mistake. It's not a silly idea. Mark Idison throwing very nicely there. Even though those two stones are together, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Switzerland to try to remove them. That's because of the score and the stage we are in the game. Switzerland are 2 points behind, and we only have 2 ends left, including this one. Switzerland have to play aggressive. They have to get shots in play. It doesn't bring anything. It won't help them. If they just remove those Canadian stones, it won't really bring anything. Then the players far away from the centre, probably Canada would remove their guard, and then very difficult to stop Canada scoring from there. Even though there are those two Canadian stones in the rings there, this is the right tactic for Switzerland, and that's fine from Françoise Jacques-Hérault. We saw the previous stone that travelled all the way through the house, and that's it out of play. We can't use that again, but if the stone comes up a little bit shorter than we wanted, as Françoise's stone did, you can see that stone's still in play. It's still on the centre line. We can use it. Dennis Thiessen doesn't like that throw. I think as soon as he released that, he wasn't happy with it, and indeed that's gone past everything. That again is a nice demonstration that with non-wheelchair curling, if we had driven out from the hack with a leg drive and we realised we were a little bit too wide, we weren't accurate on the stone. Non-wheelchair curlers, we have a couple of seconds to try and get ourselves back on target. And we can try and cover up a mistake, but there's no hiding place for wheelchair curlers. They have one push with that stick delivery. Françoise overcorrecting there, and that stone's run through as well, so Canada will have another attempt at removing these guards now.
Right at it.
If you're a Canadian fan, you may wonder why not just come around those guards. Canada could use those guards instead. They could put a stone right in the centre. And you're quite right, viewer. The reason Canada would rather just remove those guards, they don't want to go around the back of them, is because those guards make it easier for Switzerland to score. So we can see what Switzerland are up to. They're trying to sneak a stone in behind that centre guard. We know why Switzerland are very unlikely to remove those Canadian stones. And indeed, it looks like Switzerland are going to have another try at coming around that guard instead. Switzerland running out of ends to grab these points back. They're -2, and they don't have last stone. It's really important that they try to stop Canada scoring, stop Canada increasing that gap. We saw two nice throws from Laurent Knoibul in the 6th end. Has he managed to keep that weight? Does that stone want to sit? Does put his brakes on. That stone's still hanging around, but it looks like it has just run a little too far. I think still those two red stones on the right of our screen, I think those two are closer to the middle than that yellow, and that means Canada are still lying 2 points. And as we thought,
8.5, fine.
Canada
should run pretty good here.
Just wanting to remove that guard. Canada could come around that guard indeed, and then their stone would be quite safe in the centre. But if Switzerland could ever get to it, then all of a sudden we would have a Swiss stone behind cover, and that's why Canada just want to remove this stone completely. And Anna Forrest not quite finding her angle there. Without sweepers, getting the perfect angle is much more difficult, and leaving that stone out front.
Ouais, mais il perd d'appui.
Je sais pas.
Ouais, on s'appuie dessus.
Je verrai ça.
Switzerland mixing up the tactic a little bit now. It looks like they maybe want to use those Canadian stones as catchers and aim towards those Canadian stones. Again, not really interested in removing the Canadian stones, Switzerland. They need stones in play. They need to stop Canada scoring, and ideally Switzerland would love it if they could steal another point here, as they did in the third end. Fourth end, sorry. That's pretty much what they discussed doing. That stone overcurling slightly.
Nobody.
That may come back to bite them a little bit, though. They may have changed tactics, Switzerland, because they were not quite finding
I think still PO, I think.
the tee line. So that could be why they switched up that tactic and decided to
No, this is good.
place a stone over on the wings instead. But I feel that tactic, I'm not sure that helped them, even if Laurent Knoibül had made that stone perfectly, and he wasn't far off. I think I would rather have seen that stone still towards the centre of the ice. You need to stop Canada scoring if you're Switzerland. A slightly unusual shot coming up from Ina Forrest. That's her own stone that she wants to remove, and she has.
That's really good.
And she's even got a nice little roll to guard those other red stones.
What's that?
That takes play completely away from the centre. That's what Canada wanted. Remember, normally, if you have last stone, and Canada does, normally if you have last stone, you are eager to try to score more than 1 point with your one last stone. But Canada will be doing what we call playing the scoreboard now a little bit. And that means Canada know that they're +2 points. Canada are 6 shots to 4 ahead. There's only one end left. So even if Canada score only one shot with their one last stone here, that would make the score 7 points to 4. And that would be pretty tough for Switzerland to come up with 3 points in the final end. So even though we would typically see more aggressive stones, trying to keep stones in play if you have last stone, Canada doesn't need to take risks anymore. They don't need to be so aggressive because we're getting to the conclusion of this game. We could see what a nice weight that had. You could imagine if that stone just thrown from Hans Burgener, if that had not clipped that guard, I think that was just the perfect weight to reach the tee line, the horizontal line there through the circles.
13?
Yeah.
But again,
like 13.
Not a bad spot for the Swiss stone. You could definitely push that yellow a little bit further into the rings.
Just biting 8.
Okay.
Canada just ignoring that stone just thrown from Switzerland. Even if Switzerland do play onto that stone that they just threw, it still won't be towards the centre of the sheet, and that's what's important for Canada. They want to have a clear shot with John Thurston's last. Now, this is a big decision.
La ligne.
One stone each to come in 7th end of this 8-end game. One stone for Switzerland just coming, followed by last stone for Canada.
12.
Ouais, ouais.
Ouais, 11
Oui,
et demi,
oui.
12. Un peu moins de glace, hein.
Indeed, Switzerland looking to use that stone that they threw
Non.
with Hans's first
Pourtant, la
throw.
vitesse est bonne, hein.
But that stone's over curling now. That's a pity. It looks like Canada definitely allowing one stone. That red, which is just
Probably
touching
just
the
a bit of
8-foot
a fresh
circle,
path.
the white one.
I was kind of questioning whether I catch some of that quick path, but obviously not.
13, John?
I like 13.
13. Yeah.
But even if Switzerland had made that, even if Switzerland had pushed that yellow a bit further towards the tee line, Canada would be playing this identical shot anyway. As we say, Canada don't mind if they only pick up 1 stone. They're happy if they can now pick up 2 points. But important was that they left space for John Thurston's final throw, that they can definitely score 1 point. And that objective was met there from Canada. Is this stone going to settle down? I think it looks pretty good. Really nice stuff from Canada. You can see John Thurston was always playing that with his final stone. He was always about to make 1 point, but that miss from Switzerland with their final stone, that means that Canada had the chance to pick up 2. So that big score of 2 in the 7th end, that means that going into the final end, the score is Canada 8, Switzerland 4. Here's the game summary. Canada just putting their foot on the pedal a little bit in that 7th end. Switzerland had their chances, but Canada not really missing much, and Switzerland not quite taking advantage of their chances, and that resulted in an important score of 2 for Canada. That puts them 8 shots to 4 ahead going into the 8th and final end of this game. Idison has had a very nice game so far. He's hardly missed a shot with his draws to the house. Is that going to hang on? It certainly is. That's a great start for Canada in this final end. Switzerland have the last stone.
14,5.
They will need 8 for 8 stones here. No mistakes for Switzerland if they want to try to score 4 points to take this game to an extra end. This stone needs to stop. That looks nice though. It just stops in time for Patrick Delacretas. Why is that a good shot if you're a Swiss fan? And say, well, why did they not remove that Canadian shot? That looks like a better idea. You're not wrong, viewer. But the reason Switzerland didn't just remove that Canadian stone, which is an easy shot for them. If you imagine, if Switzerland would just remove that Canadian stone, then Canada remove Swiss stone, Switzerland remove Canada stone, etc. Switzerland will end up only managing to score 1 point. And we know that Switzerland need more. So what they've done is, Switzerland have put up a guard that's right underneath our graphic. Oh, there it's popped out now. And that's a really important guard. That's protected by free guard zone. Canada not allowed to remove that stone from play until 5 stones have been thrown. And conversely, we just saw Mark Idison do what we call throw through. He threw his stone through the house, and he did that on purpose. That's not a mistake. And the reason Canada decided to throw the stone away, they didn't want it in play. We saw there in the 6th end how dangerous stones in play can be. And Canada have that high in their heads that they don't want a lot of stones in play. That can only really help Switzerland, as we saw in that 6th end. But We can see that stone, it's just touching the very outside of the 12-foot circle, the blue one. And that means it isn't protected by free guard zone, and that means Canada can remove it. Big chance for Dennis Thiessen here to push this game over the line, to really start pushing it beyond Switzerland's reach. He's done that beautifully. Going for an encore. He's going to roll himself into the house. Really nice stuff from Dennis Thiessen. Typically in curling, you play until your opposition has so-called run out of stones. And that means Canada, they will keep removing Swiss stones until there are fewer than 4 Swiss stones that would be able to count. That's the objective for Canada. We won't see Canada really bother trying to score points themselves.
Essaye de venir à 12. Puis tu reviens un peu devant.
Tu veux que je touche la rouge pour week-end?
Ouais.
À combien?
Viens à 12, 12 et demi.
You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stones have been played.
Tu viens de poser dessus.
Free guard zone is over.
Ou 13 même.
Non mais attends, tu me dis tous les chiffres.
13,
On a 13, ça enlève pas la rouge.
And it's just turning behind to look at the clock there to make sure that they've still got plenty of time. They don't have to rush in this 8th end. So free guard zone is over, and Switzerland either need to use that corner guard or they're going to lose it. And they've decided to play towards the Canadian stones instead. They feel that that's more likely to be a successful shot for them. And that's exactly what they were looking for. Again, not really important to remove that Canadian stone. What's important is to get a yellow stone in play, and those 2 reds now behind T-line, the horizontal line, behind that T-line, and that is the most likely way that they can get a mistake from Canada. And we've seen how a mistake can happen in that situation. If we don't get the angle right, and it's hard to get the angle right when you don't have people sweeping the stone. If you don't get that angle right, then that yellow might squirt backwards onto one of the reds. That's what Switzerland will be hoping for. But still a lot of work to do for Switzerland to try to score 4 points in this end. Exactly like that.
Sorry.
If you're learning tactics, maybe, if you're starting curling and you're learning how to skip, you're learning tactics, there's been several really insightful ends in this game.
Doucement dessus.
Doucement dessus.
À 12.
12, nouveau.
Ouais.
We've had a lot to learn in this game about why this stone works and why this particular stone doesn't, why it's a good idea to play a particular tactic. So that tactic worked for Switzerland. Now they need to set another trap and hope they can spring that trap on Canada. This was Jacqueline. Her last throw, at least in this 8th end. This one's coming in hot, but again, there's plenty of stones lying around. And that takes a bit of the energy out. And important is that Switzerland now have 2 stones in the rings. Not in the perfect position, but they need to keep stones in play. And that's not bad from Francoise. Another important tactic if you're learning tactics for curling, you don't have to be lying shot. That means you don't have to have your stones closest to the middle after every single shot. You need to have that at the conclusion of the end, and what you'll see is the teams are really thinking through to the final stone of each end, not just stone by stone. And Switzerland have sprung that trap again. they have got another mistake from Canada. Canada may be in maybe too much of a rush to finish this game. So still work to do for Switzerland, but gosh, they're not half giving themselves a chance to score the 4 points needed to take this one to an extra.
Ah,
C'est bien.
ouais, c'est bien.
Lachlan Knoibül had a much better second half of this game than the first half. And he would love to keep that going now. You can hear the little beep from Françoise Jacquot from her stopwatch. The players constantly timing the stones between the two hog lines. So there's the thick red line, that one there, that's the hog line at either end. And the players constantly timing how long the stone takes to travel between the two. And again, that's not a terrible result at all for Switzerland. That stone not so close to the middle, but now Switzerland have 3 yellow stones lying around, and Canada will be getting a bit concerned.
Quand tu voulais aller faire quoi? Tu voulais taper la roue?
If you imagine, there's a great angle. If you could ever make a double takeout, if you could remove both of those reds with one stone, then guess what? Suddenly you have the 4 points you need to take this game to the extra end. So Canada will be getting very concerned about all these yellows piling up. And no mistake this time from Ina Forrest. Remember, that's all Canada have to do. They just need to keep removing stones. And indeed, Switzerland deciding that they cannot score 4 points from here. That was enough from Ina Forrest. There is one Swiss stone towards the front of the house, but I think no way to bring that back into play. So that means not possible for Switzerland to score 4 points anymore.
Tu peux continuer? Ouais, il avait encore 2 pierres.
Ah, ça y est, mais pétard.
Dry, mais ça change rien.
Ouais, bon.
Dry,
Mais c'était bon, hein?
Just having a little discussion there. The Swiss are we sure we counted correctly? But there were 3 stones still to come, but it would have been very difficult to bring the other Swiss stone into play. And that final score there in our featured game here, Canada against Switzerland, Canada winning 8 points, 8 shots to 4. Confirmation of that final result here in the wheelchair curling at Paralympic Winter Games. Canada continuing their strong start to this competition, picking off Switzerland 8 shots to 4. How does that affect the standings? Well, now Canada, for the time being, there are still games out there, but Canada, for the time being, top of the table with 2 wins and 0 losses. Switzerland looking for their first win still. And we can see that reflected in the numbers. Just a couple of crucial shots really made from Canada to just keep their noses out in front, not really let Switzerland get back a big end there, and doing exactly what they needed to finish off that in that 8th end, just running Switzerland out of stones. No chance for Switzerland to get 4 points back for an extra end. Another strong performance from the Canadian team tonight.
Oui, c'est ça.
Continuing then, their strong form from the beginning of this competition, Canada. They ran into Switzerland, who were very dogged today. They were not going away easily, Switzerland, and Canada really had to fight.
Top, top. Super.
Tu vois comme les gens t'applaudissent.
Il va nous enlever là. Il va nous enlever là. Dans le tempo. Il y a encore une pierre, Patrick.
Ah ouais.
Are you ready? 3 year shot. Get you.
Je lance.
Voilà.
Là, il me brûle.
On ouvre les
On
compteurs.
remonte, on remonte.
C'est parti. Hein.